sometimes it's just nice. And we have kind of a cozy group today, so we're going to sit. Good?
Yes. Very cool.
All my stuff. All right. So the first Sunday of every month this year so far has been dedicated to a world that works for everyone. Many of my colleagues have been doing this idea of a world that works for everyone. Some doing it every single Sunday, some doing it once a month, some doing it however they feel like it, because that's the way we roll around here. So for me, I've been doing it once a month. A world that works for everyone. Big, big vision that our Centers for Spiritual Living has. When we look at the world, it's like, wow, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get to a world that it works for everyone? Because it seems like there's so much lack, so many problems, and so many places that the world isn't working for people. What I know about a vision from one of my beloved teachers, Reverend Patrick Pollard, do you remember Patrick? He said a vision should be so big that you never complete it. You complete goals, you complete your missions, but you don't ever complete the vision. So perfect. A vision of the world that works for everyone will never be done, and that's okay. We just keep working toward that. And it'll always be shifting as well. I don't know what that means. This month particularly is about being in service. Being in service. So when you hear that, do you think like, oh my gosh, when do I have time to be in service? Those of you who are still working. Do you hear, oh, well, that's just about religious duty? Do you hear, oh, I don't have enough money. It could be really expensive to be in service, or there's no money in it. There's no money to be made in service. Well, keep in mind, first of all, that being in service does not necessarily mean being a volunteer, which is why when I looked at Campbell and I said I wanted it for service, I said, don't be afraid. Because it wasn't that I'm going to make you do more stuff or ask you to be in service and do more stuff. Everything we do here at this church is about being in service. This isn't a volunteer position for me. So being in service, first of all, could be so many things, and we'll get to that later, but it's not just about volunteering, and it doesn't have to be about religious duty, and it doesn't have to be about having rules of time, and it doesn't have to cost you money. Okay, those are all just ideas I wanted to address in case your mind went to any of those places. This quote, love in action is service, which is what Debbie was singing about. But that specific quote, love in action is service, was said by Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa. I want to say a little bit more about Mother Teresa because she, for many people, is a great example of somebody living her life in service. From today's Science of Mind magazine, we have this. Mother Teresa, also known as Blessed Teresa of Calcutta, becomes a saint of the Catholic Church today. Known around the world for her work with the poorest among the poor in Calcutta, India, she became convinced at age 12 that she would commit herself to a religious life. She began her missionary work with the poor in 1948 by volunteering in the slums. She was joined by a group of young women a year later and began to lay the foundations of a new religious community. Teresa wrote in her diary that first year that it was fraught with difficulties. She had no income and had to resort to begging for food and supplies. She experienced doubt, not something that we see when we see the accomplished Saint Teresa. She experienced doubt, loneliness, and the temptation to return to the comfort of convent life. After writing an entry in her journal, she concluded with, "Of free choice, my God, and out of love for you, I desire to remain and do whatever your holy will be in my regard." What officially started with 13 women in 1950 had grown to more than 4,000 sisters running orphanages, AIDS hospices, and charity centers worldwide. By the time of her death, these organizations were caring for refugees, the blind, disabled, and elderly, alcoholics, the poor and the homeless, victims of floods, epidemics, and famine. We started with 13, and now we're doing all this. She died on September 5th, 1997, and becomes a saint today on September 4th. What a great thing for the Catholic Church. And I looked up what it takes to become a saint. OMG. They don't take this thing lightly. So first you go from being in service. So Mother Teresa, she was a nun. She was in service. Now I don't have all the chronology, so the dates aren't that important to me. At some point in time, her service was given long enough and good enough to be called Blessed Teresa. And that came with a certain amount of scrutiny, that came with a certain amount of time and watching that, okay, she's really serious, she's giving her life in service to God and to other people. Blessed Teresa. Becoming a saint here's a few things that I wrote down. First, you must be living a godly life. In her case, in the Catholic Church, it is very much a religious duty. Always trying to better yourself, and by what they call through the will of God. You must be showing that you are a servant of God to other people. You must have 2, at least, verified miracles. Now get this. If a psychologist or a medical doctor or science can prove the reason for that thing, it's not a miracle. Wow! I mean, it has to be something that medicine goes, we don't get it. It has to be something that a psychologist can't explain away. It has to be something that a scientist can't say, well, here's the scientific proof. There has to be people scratching their heads to go, we really don't know why this happened. It must be a miracle. 2 of those verified. My practitioners who have to have documented demonstrations, that's nothing. Practitioners, in order to renew their license, have to have proof that they've been successful at giving prayer for people and something happened. We don't call it a miracle. You don't have to prove that science can. I thought, wow, okay, so at least 2 of those. And get this, so when the person is buried, there has to be a certain amount of time that if they were to open that casket, the body would not be decomposed. Like 5 years. And it must have a nice odor.
Whoa.
I was like, whoa. Okay, so apparently she's passed all these tests to be called a saint. So they don't just give out this title lightly, is the whole point there. It's a big deal. So Saint Teresa deserves our applause. All right, now I want to come back to the very simple thing that she said. Love in action is service. We can all do that. We don't have to have any special honors or any special, relationship with God. Well, we do have that already anyway. But love in action is service. It just feels good. It feels good to give your love in action to other people. I don't know about you, but to me, when I'm in service in some way, there's an uplift. For me, it enriches me, it enriches the giver. So there's 2 practices, or 2 principles that we're looking at here. Probably more than 2, but the ones that I'm addressing today are, as we give, we receive. It's a spiritual principle in play today. And the other one is that we are the heart and the hands of God in service. So like someone like Mother Teresa, she would think of it as doing God's will and doing what God would have her do. All right, beautiful way to think of it. I think of it as, it's not that some God out there is going to tell me what to do, but everything that I'm doing with that heart is my heart of God, my hands in service, whatever that might be. So we are the heart and hands of God. And as we give, we receive. These are the spiritual principles that are at play in my talk today. When I was a child, most of you, I think, know that I was a dancer most of my life. I started dancing when I was 4 and a half. Don't remember not ever dancing. And I had a lot of friends who were dancers. And one of the things that our teachers and parents would have us do is we'd go out and we'd dance at, I'm just going to say it like I heard it when I was a kid, old folks' homes. And I'm going to say this one differently, special needs homes. It was the R word homes when I was a child. And that's what we were always That's where we went mostly. So it was the people who couldn't get out, and then the people who were in wheelchairs or special needs of some sort.